Do student leaders get to SONU to benefit themselves or serve the students?
As a student leader who's started in at a very low stage of a congress, I think it depends with an individual. There are people who are really interested in being good leaders and serving, and I think there are also people who have different self-ambitions and self-interest. So at the end of the day, I think what would make a student leader get votes is that they present themselves as people who can serve and actually deliver to comrades. So at the end of the day, I think the motivation you get from your supporters, if you're a really genuine person, would drive you to do a few good things for them, or probably do every possible good thing that you could do. So I think in SONU, there are two dimensions of people. There are people who get there with the real good intention of serving students and giving back, and there are people who get there for personal benefit. Yes.
Okay, so there's no financial benefit from for someone who's in SONU?
I want to say that the financial benefit one gets in SONU is not something that is even worth mentioning, because we have different categories in SONU. For the signatories, you get like a monthly allowance of 6,500, and for the congresses, you get an allowance of 3,000 shillings. So I don't think that's really some money that can turn tables. Yeah, but it really helps and assists several students who get into leadership. But I also don't think that it is the main reason why people vie for SONU positions.
Okay, thank you. So Mike Jacob, you were recently targeted by the national media because of the elections that you were vying against Babu Owino, and it landed you a suspension, and very many students who are helping you with the demonstrations were also suspended. Before we talk about the suspension, what led you to demonstrate on the roads?
I would basically say that on the 1st of April we conducted an election that we considered very peaceful and was conducted in the right way from the beginning hours to around 7 in the night, when things changed and we were actually not able to access everything else democratically as we would. This, in its own sense, gave a loophole to a massive rigging that was experienced by the students and is in the knowledge of all students. What happened in form of a demonstration came about after the students who had voted the previous day felt cheated by the electoral commission that was presented to them by the university. In this sense, I mean that in my own transparency, what I was able to present back to them was not actually what reflected back at the tallying center. The students generally came together and demanded answers to know why things had been the way they had. If we had trust in our electoral system, then why would we claim that things did not run the way we expected? If these were the results, then how many students are in concurrence with these results? I think this led to the gathering that finally led to a demonstration.
Okay. So do you claim you won the elections?
I don't claim that I won the elections. I would say that I won the elections. Yes.
What's the proof that you won the elections?
The proof that I won the elections does not depend on the kind of results that we got from the election that was presented to us by the body that was conducting the elections. I personally was able to receive the results for almost each and every station via the POs who were in these stations, via the ROs who were in these stations, and I actually did not see a concurrence in the records that I found from the POs and those that were presented to the ROs. This raised a lot of questions from myself and even from the student fraternity. I would give you a very good example of main campus where I study, where I was able to get 834 votes against Babu Owino's 283, to be exact. At the polling, at the tallying center, I do not know how these figures changed to me getting 56 votes in main campus and Babu Owino not topping but somebody else who is little known getting 546. And the other results, which I cannot really remember in exact figures, were also looking cooked to myself. In the contradiction of how many votes were presented by the POs in this station and how many votes were presented at the tallying station, clearly raise a question of what could have been happening during this election.
Okay, thank you. Captain Dennis, you were vying for chairmanship last year. Did you have the same problem with the votes?
Yeah, I could say I had the same problem with the votes because looking at what transpired last year, as it were, it was the democratic right of students to come out and vote. And students came out and they voted overwhelmingly. But apparently, the results that were being announced were not the actual results that were actually tallied. What happens, we don't know. But this is an issue that the administration of the University of Nairobi should look at, because the student body has entrusted the University of Nairobi administration to ensure that all elections are held free and they're held fair. So apparently, this is not what we get. It's not the display that we get after each and every election, because once votes go to the tallying center, they're not the votes that we get from the different polling stations as they were counted. So it's according to me, it's a show of compromised leadership all through.
So this is a common problem in elections, and we hope to get a clear solution to that.
Okay, Joy, what we are looking at is like a situation like Mike's situation. And my question, Mike, goes to you, because you claim you had won the election, but where was all this figure during the campaign period? Because to me it seems like you are coming out at a time when it is not a campaign period. You should actually be disqualified at this time, because at this time is not when you should be campaigning. When we were campaigning, why didn't we feel you on the ground? I went to over 8 campuses, and with Babu went to all the campuses. But we didn't feel you there. What happened? Why didn't you come out like this when we were campaigning at the right time? Why are you throwing your dice at the wrong time?
I would love to answer you in this way, that if you are the person I am petitioning against, if you are in that government and you have faced this problem before, Angel, you have been rigged out of an election before.
I have never been rigged out. There was only a petition and we went through it very well.
And that is what is happening now. In your knowledge, you are clearly aware of what happens in the university. Dennis has been able to confirm to you. It is not a question of how much we feel you on the ground. It is a question of what kind of leadership do you portray you'd like to provide to the students. If they love that kind of leadership, then they make their choice according to...
Mike, the number of students...
This is going to turn into an argument. It should be focused. It shouldn't be about the elections. It should be about SONU. Let us try and discuss these problems which you have faced in SONU. Dennis has faced them in SONU, and I have faced the same problems. And we have followed procedures, and right now, these matters are before a petition panel. But we have to recount what happened. I have to have my own account. That is your own account as my opponent. So, exactly. Yeah.
The issue here is not who won or lost the elections. Basically, issue here is how these elections are actually handled. See, we have student commissioners, we have staff commissioners. Let the university administration stop lying to the public that that SONU in itself is an independent body from the University of Nairobi. I mean, all the returning officers and the staff commissioners come from the administration, university administration. And at the end of the day, Angel, whatever is tallied in those tallying stations is not what transpires, meaning the voice of students is not what gets to be elected, or rather what gets to be sworn in. Students' voice at this moment in time in the University of Nairobi has lost its meaning. It's like what they want, they don't get, which is an act of butchering democracy on its own.